dawn in the village of Shivpuri in one of India's poorest states, Rajasthan. The early risers contend with choking dust and pollution on top of the heat. This vast country is enjoying enormous economic growth, and unless action is taken, the villagers here and across India can expect more of the same as industry and consumption rise.
But we've also said repeatedly that we do not want to go to the levels which you have gone, which the Western nations have gone now. We want to remain below those levels, overall emissions within a country, and for that obviously we need financing and technology.
Both of which are on hand, including through the EU's support for carbon emission reduction in Indian industry. Samtel Glass in Rajasthan produces high-strength glass for television sets and display tubes. At capacity, 10 million a year, forged in processes which generate a lot of CO2. The company is tackling emissions head-on, and through the emissions offset scheme devised under the Kyoto Protocol, is making it pay.
There are capital investments involved, but the payback on those investments is pretty fast. So the effort has been to try and locate projects, and there are many of them. We have to push them step by step.
The company started the process 4 years ago by switching part of its power generation from diesel to natural gas. This qualified it for remuneration under an environmental scheme devised at Kyoto, known as CDM, or the Clean Development Mechanism. So successful has the scheme been for Samtel that it's considering converting another diesel generator. It's also reducing its carbon footprint by recycling wastewater, capping and reusing exhaust heat, and using raw material shipped in from glass recycling centres around the world. Energy saving is pressed on each and every of Samtel's 600 workers, like Dev Shankar Upadhyay, a senior technician there for almost 17 years. He and his wife live a simple life with just enough domestic appliances for comfort, but not much more. Compared with a similar domestic setup in the West, their personal carbon footprint is minuscule. Still, Mr. Upadhyay has seen the early autumn temperature in Rajasthan rise annually in the past 20 years, and he's demanding action.
इसमें एजुकेशन के मामले में बहुत ज़्यादा जागरूकता रखनी है गवर्नमेंट को, और उद्योग ज़्यादा खुले, लोग बेरोजगार ना हो, कारण कि एटमॉस्फेयर को बचाएंगे, एटमॉस्फेयर बचा हुआ रहेगा तो हमारे आम जन जीवन में लोगों को भी सुखी ज़िंदगी जीने में आराम मिलेगा.
Protecting the environment is a complex business. So how does it work here? Firms submit plans to reduce CO2 emissions or increase energy efficiency. They receive internationally tradable carbon credits for capping greenhouse gas pollution. Polluting Western companies pay for the credits awarded to developing countries to respect the caps imposed in their own countries. And CO2 reduction schemes contribute to technology transfer, create jobs, reduce take-up from the grid, and improve health standards. The Okla composting plant in Delhi is a case in point. It turns waste generated by the city's vegetable markets into compost. The waste would have been poured into landfill sites, generating thousands of tons of methane every year. As a greenhouse gas, methane is 20 times more harmful to the environment than CO2. In India, there's a huge demand for compost, as by law it must be mixed with fertilizer. Yet, this plant would have closed had it not qualified for the income from carbon credits. Evidence that sound business and sound environmental practices are natural allies. For the EU, this is an article of faith, which defines the path to an expanded globalized carbon trading system. But persuading the polluters of the future that they have to shoulder a big part of the responsibility will be tough.
It's very easy to say that, okay, do this, but in a country like India, where we have so many people to feed, where we have so many other responsibilities to be fulfilled, we will have to look at those aspects, that we do not ignore the welfare aspects of our population.
You know, when moving forward, we have to look at all the aspects. Save water, save electricity is very important. We have to go in hand with nature.
Development and growth part should not be stopped of the least developed and developing countries, but at the same time, We can't also keep on passing the buck always on the developed countries and say, we won't do, we have to develop now, we have to grow.
But the critical issue here is that mitigating climate change will lead to improvements in the lives of India's poor. Climate change causes floods one season, drought the next. It affects the health and security of communities, and it threatens rural livelihoods because, as this farmer has discovered, available water declines with a sinking water table. He says it's dropped 15 meters here since his father's day.
क्यों सर अभी भी लेवल अगर इतना है तो फिर बाद में तो और कंडीशन खराब है पहले लेवल हमारे पिताजी के टाइम पे लेवल 20 फीट पे लेवल चल रहा था
As understanding of climate change increases, so too does the need to devise rural support and development programs that tackle its worst effects, so that future generations can live in safety.
They are very much aware and more over time about the impact of climate change on nature and on humankind and on agriculture, not the least. If we work together with India on equal footing on energy efficiency, on renewables, etc., on solar, the climate mitigation is in the slipstream.
As world leaders prepare the next generation treaty on climate change, the EU wants developed and developing countries to build carbon emissions trading systems that connect with the system it's pioneered. It wants advance, to make CDMs less bureaucratic and more effective, and to encompass whole sectors like steel, cement and power generation in a new crediting mechanism for more advanced developing countries. Sectoral crediting, as it's known, would allow emission reduction efforts to be scaled up. Indians are watching the process with caution.
We should not be saddled with a framework where our inclusive growth is affected. We need growth. We are aware we need a sustainable and inclusive growth. We will do it in a framework that is most suited to us.
The post-2012 Kyoto regime, if something comes out, actually after the Kyoto, we never know that, we don't know. Something needs to be done because I think the cost of inaction will be too large for the global community at large.
Others are calling for a real commitment to reducing carbon emissions by supporting green public transport schemes.
If the rich or the Western nations or Annex I countries, they are looking to offset their own emissions by buying credits in the developing countries, it should not come cheaply. It should not come at a cheap cost as it is coming today. It should go into real low carbon technologies which are expensive.
Cement production is vital in any growing economy, but a big emitter of CO2. Vikram Cement in Madhya Pradesh switched from fossil fuels powering its kilns to fuel derived from agricultural byproducts and municipal waste. It generates extra jobs outside the plant in the collection and sorting processes. Although Vikram qualifies for carbon credits, it's yet to recoup its capital outlay. But when it does, it should discover that the return on investment is high. This is the key point. The greening of industry needs to be cost-effective for it to be sustainable. From the outset, the EU's principle has been to stimulate business through the obvious returns and savings made, rather than burden it at a time of growth with mandatory regulations. Without such a free market approach, any evolving policies to limit climate change would surely crumble. Indians say they're ready to play their part in a process which has economic sense at its heart, with one important distinction. India is a country of more than 1 billion people, and it's honor-bound to meet their individual needs as well as the planet's collective needs.